All right, welcome everyone to the Logistics of Marketing. On this first episode, we're going to be talking about hiring, and I have Charlie and Grace with me today. Charlie Saffro of CCS Recruiting and Grace Sharkey of FreightWaves. Hey guys, how are you?
Hello, happy to be here.
Awesome.
I'm doing good. Yeah. Thanks for having us both. It's going to be a fun chat.
Fantastic. Well, hello to everyone who is in the session thus far. We are using Demio as a platform today, so you guys can chat back and forth. If there's questions that you guys want to ask, either Grace, Charlie, or myself, feel free to drop those in the chat and we will engage with you as we go through. But as we started today, I want to first take a second to let you guys know what the logistics of marketing is. So, for me personally, there's been two through lines in my life. So the first through line is logistics. My father has been a truck driver actually for 32 years. So I grew up, taking truck drives, being, in the back of a sleeper, going on runs with him. And then the other constant in my life has been marketing. I've always had an intrigue with marketing and how it works and how to communicate with people. At its simplest, marketing, effective marketing, is communication that calls people to action. So as we think about everything that has transpired in logistics and transportation in the past 3 to 5 years, it's been really interesting to me to see the through lines that exist between logistics and marketing, which is what spurred on this show. So what we're going to be doing in every part of this series is getting into the nuts and bolts of hot topics within transportation logistics. And we thought, what a better topic to start about than hiring, right? Everyone is talking about hiring. We're hearing these hot topics like the Great Resignation and hiring turbulence and hiring wars. So we invited Grace Sharkey and Charlie Saffro, the experts in their fields, to share a bit of their knowledge about how marketing to talent actually works in logistics and transportation. So today's topic is hiring turbulence, talent wars, and how to market to talent. So first up, Charlie Saffro, why don't you give us just, kind of a 30 to 60 second introduction about yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Charlie Saffro, and I am the founder and president of CS Recruiting. We are a third-party recruiting firm out of Chicago. Got about a 40-person team, and we focus exclusively in supply chain, logistics, and transportation. So we are recruiting for any direct hire, full-time, permanent position in the industry, pretty much recruiting for any role outside of CDL drivers themselves. It is a crazy market, so I'm happy to be here to discuss what's going on and how you can combat that with some of your hiring initiatives.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. Grace, why don't you give us a 30 to 60 second about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Grace Sharkey. I am currently a staff writer at FreightWaves.com. I lead a couple of podcasts and just help with overall content for the site as well. In my past, I helped build a multi-million-dollar freight brokerage up in Grand Rapids, and of course was a part of the recruiting process there, and spent a lot of time in college recruiting for nonprofits and different initiatives for that. So it's given me an interesting view on how it's done. And thank God we have Charlie here, who's the expert at it. But I've actually been able to write about this market that we're currently in, this hot market for especially brokerages, and Charlie was a big part of that article as well. So I picked a good duo here that we spent a good couple hours discussing the same topic. So I'm excited to bring that to you guys in a condensed version.
For sure. Well, awesome. So we're super excited to have you both here today. So again, this topic of hiring, there's so many layers in this, and sometimes it can feel overwhelming to even know where to start with this topic. So I think every subject that we cover in this series, Logistics of Marketing, we really want to try to get, sort of a lay of the land, like what's existing in our space right now, how are people interacting with it? And I'd love to hear from both of your perspectives on, whether that's past perspective or current perspective, how some of these problems are being solved. So we can really give some of our viewers, some tools and tips and tricks to, approaching hiring. So, first question here, what role does marketing currently play in businesses in our field to, attract top talent? And I'd love to hear from both of you on this. Why don't we
You
start
want
with
to take it, Grace?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Charlie,
All
you
right.
take it first.
All right. I'll chime in here. So, marketing for recruitment is a really interesting topic. I think when companies think about marketing and they plan their budgets, they think about marketing to their customers, or in the brokerage industry, marketing so carriers and shippers know who they are and go to them. But it's really important that companies also think about marketing for talent and how are they going to attract new hires. So, in order to recruit, you have to retain. In order to retain, you have to have a good, stable organization and offer the benefits and the perks that the employees want. And that's what the key to marketing for hiring is really exposing your brand, putting it out there, whether it's direct or indirect, whether it's through current employees or advertising or a third party recruiting firm, but really exposing what is your company about, and think, why would someone want to work here, and then why do our people stay here? That's what's going to attract people to even gain interest for a conversation.
Yeah, that's awesome. Grace, what about from your perspective? How have you seen, marketing play roles in the businesses that you've been a part of as it relates to hiring?
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing about marketing is that you never know who and when is going to view it. So a lot of times, I think that you're indirectly marketing for recruitment, right? I think of some of the great logistics companies out there, like FreightWaves is a great one. They're huge on making TikToks and sharing them on LinkedIn, and that they're not directly trying to use those to hire people. They're using them to show off what it's like to be in a freight brokerage, and how they problem solve as a team and how they take care of their carriers. But what people don't realize is that, that's right now, with so many people looking for different opportunities, they're actually working towards marketing towards hiring as well. So for me, I think what people need to understand is that when any type of form of marketing is going to potentially go towards how you're retaining and recruiting your overall employees, and how you go about it can also help with a lot of the initiatives that you're working on in-house, whether it's implementing new technology, or you're looking to offer quick pay to carriers now. How you market that, not just outside, right, to carriers, but also inwards to your actual performers, and showing them how to pitch those things. It can be a big impact on your company as well. So it's something I'd say in the last couple of years, honestly, Charlie, is a big part of opening my eyes to it, is marketing can come in different forms and different aspects. And it really does, it's your impression, it's your brand, it's what people see first of you. So it's very impactful. I'm glad you're doing a series on it.
Yeah, awesome. So, you're hitting at something really interesting here. And, it's kind of that internal marketing versus external marketing, right? And, some people hear that and are like, well, isn't marketing just kind of marketing? Like, shouldn't I just have a marketing strategy? Can you talk a little bit more, Grace, about, how we should maybe view internal marketing, at our firms, whether that's brokers or, transportation providers or freight tech, what does that even mean, and how should we, approach that?
Definitely. So I think when you look at internal marketing, it's you need to think about some of the issues or hurdles you're trying to overcome as an organization, right? Let's say you're adopting a new transportation management system. Why not work on different quick tips or different types of posters that you could put up across your organization that shows, using this TMS, you can produce this X faster, or using this function can help improve your commissions by this much over time, and using that internal strategy to promote the outcome that you're hoping to get. And that can even come down to like the material that you use for that first day of training, right? Like, I think sometimes people don't realize that how much effort you put into that either that first book that you give them, or even what they come and see at their desk the moment they walk in. Like, that type of stuff means something. And if I was a person who saw this huge flashy hiring marketing campaign, and then I come in and my desk is a mess. The materials that I'm using for training are just like individually handed out and don't really go together. And it's going to make me think that there was some level of inauthenticity between those two. And we all know, I'm sure Charlie can touch on this, like some of the best recruits you can get are referrals. So why not make sure that the same amount of effort that you're putting into how organizations and people see you on the outside is exactly the same internally inside. So that's what I love when I see companies like, I know sometimes people think it's cheesy, but when they put on like your mission statement on the wall and things like that, it can really help people understand, oh, this is like, they want us to really live by this motto, and they want us to treat our customers this way. And even let's say the sales side, right? Like being able to market your sales team to your customers. That's an internal way of doing it as well. It's not just about advertisements, but also, showcasing, like, you're working with reps so and so because they're really passionate about moving steel and have moved this much steel in their lifetime. Like creating those type of like images and pictures for your customers as well can go a long way. And it really shows off your authenticity, that you're not just doing it for people to see, but you're doing it because it's truly impactful to what you're trying to do.
Man, I love that. Yeah, you're hitting on something really cool there. And I know that Charlie and I have talked about this in the past, like how to view a new employee onboarding experience, right? So Charlie, can you share some of your thoughts on like when we think through, this experience of like becoming part of a brand and like, marketing to someone internally and getting that buy-in, like what have you seen? And like, even in the folks that you've worked with, what are some of the areas that we can start to focus on and really, bolster if we're thinking of this idea of internal marketing and hiring and, employee experience?
Yeah, I want to quickly touch on what Grace said, because I think that's an important point going back to my first response. Companies are marketing to customers. They're marketing to, other audiences that are going to generate revenue. And a lot of the things that they're putting out there are things that their current employees or prospective candidates want as well. So, if they're bragging, and they should be bragging, we have the best technology. That's going to help a shipper. It's going to help a carrier. And that is what a candidate with experience in the industry might be looking for. We have great leadership. We have a mission. Your mission should speak to your external and internal audience. So as it relates to onboarding, that is the very start of this person's journey. It really, really starts with the interview and that first conversation. And I think companies just need to be mindful of that. And also be mindful when you talk about your employees and referrals, it's a really continuous cycle. So if you think about, a company has their mission statement, their values, they are attracting people that share the same values. Those then become employees, and that really is creating your culture, creating your talent brands. And then if those employees are, reflecting outwards or referring people into the company, you're going to get more like-minded people. And that's really how a culture develops is, they say A players recruit A players. It's that whole notion of get people in your company who believe they're a cultural fit. They believe in your values and mission. They're going to either recruit or just attract other like-minded people, through the interview onboarding process, also just through the company reputation and, tools like LinkedIn to know who works at that company and do I want to be a part of a team like that?
Yeah, that's really awesome insight. And, I mean, you touched on brand a little bit in there, right? Like, how do you get somebody to kind of come into your brand? And, that can be an interesting word in our space. And, even I would say like within the past 3 to 5 years, like marketing and this idea of branding is kind of new, to a lot of brokers and transportation providers. So I want to dive into this word brand because sometimes it can feel loaded. But when we hear the word brand, okay, how should your brand impact recruiting? What tools are even out there so that we can start using a brand? And I know this is something, Charlie, for you and CS Recruiting that you dive into with a lot of your clients, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, we cannot have a successful partnership and bring our clients the right candidates unless they've done the work internally, unless they've established a positive image and a culture and a brand. So,
Yeah.
I mean, exactly what you said, Zach, this is a new concept for many brokerages. It just hasn't been, part of the planning and the budget. But whether any company realizes it or not, they have a brand. Just like we all have our own personal brands and we may not really connect with it, we're walking brands. So
Yeah.
in a company, a brand is different than a culture, but they're very interconnected. And when you think about the company brand, yes, that's the logo. It's, the consistency of how you put yourself out there. But it really is, things like your reputation, things like the stability, your pricing structure, your technology. And then there's something else, the talent brand. And I don't think a lot of companies are even aware, whether they work at it or not, that a talent brand exists. And that is really what is the perception of your company. So the talent brand is tricky because it takes a lot of work. You're trying to either create a perception or change a perception to make these candidates, look at your company in a certain way. So the talent brand is for, prospective candidates, current employees, past employees. And the things that might influence your talent brands are the interview experience, the job description. Was it well written? Did it, really summarize and get me excited about the opportunity? How does the company communicate, on a mass basis, but also on a one-to-one basis throughout that interview process? What's the growth potential here? What do career paths look like? What is the recruiting strategy, and who are the people touching these candidates? So I think that's one thing that it usually happens indirectly, Zach. You probably like it, companies, as they're focused on their brand for business, they are creating this perception of their talent brand. But there's also a huge opportunity for companies to really hone in and think about developing and promoting the talent brand specifically for recruiting purposes.
Okay. So I love that. But let's dive in just a little bit deeper. So if I'm a broker right now, I'm
Sure.
like, okay, talent brand is new to me. That's a new term. I don't even know what that means. Where would I start? Like what's a place that I can start to, develop this talent brand? Like what are the pieces
Great
that I
question.
would look at?
Yeah, and I mean, we do this exercise as part of a consulting service with some clients, and it's always really interesting because there are, different things that you're going to look at in the organization. I'll go through a few of those, but really pushing companies to think about what about this can we promote, but also recognizing where do we fall short. So, compensation is a great example when you're talking about, recruiting and marketing to candidates. Every company wants to believe they have the best comp plan out there. So, we may talk to a client and they'll say, we have the highest commission. We pay 25%. That is what you want to promote. But you also need to recognize that you're paying 25% and it might be a draw. Or maybe you pay 25%, but you don't have a benefits package. And not that you want to put that information out there, but you need to be aware that your competitors probably do have what you lack. And so how do you really play up your strengths while being aware of the areas you might need to work on as it relates to the competition? So looking at your people of all levels and who represents the organization, looking at the career opportunities. Are you growing? Are you scaling? Are you flat? Do you have layers? Compensation, benefits, perks. Looking at the culture and what can you promote and really brag about as it relates to your culture. And then this whole thing, compiles into what this company brand looks like. And every company brand has strengths and weaknesses. And again, you just need to be aware of those weaknesses because that's how your competitors might get the person you're after.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I just put a poll out to everyone who is in chat, everyone who's on the webinar right now. So the poll was, what do you find as the biggest hurdle in a hiring strategy? Okay, so the answers: retaining talent, attracting qualified talent, knowing how to communicate your brand, or just all of the above. And it's really interesting. We're kind of even across the board for all of the answers thus far. But I want to use this to kind of spur on a question to both of you. So, if this talent brand, if a hiring strategy kind of all ties into the overarching brand as a company, right? How if I'm in the broker seat, how should I start approaching my marketing strategy, right? We have these traditional outreach, methods like, do I go to college events? Like, do I start, approaching SEO? Like, what are those things? So I'd love to hear some of the tactics that you guys would recommend, to somebody who's in that seat, if they're building these strategies out. So why don't we start with Grace? Like, if we're building marketing strategies, how should I start thinking about that? What are some of the things that I can do and engage with, to get that going?
Honestly, I think in this this comes from someone who's not the queen of hiring like we have over here to my which should be my right. But I think the biggest thing I would do is talk to one of your, like, culture wise, one of your greatest employees, like someone who is able to pump people up, someone who really loves the job, who's outspoken about loving their job, and just sit with them and figure out what attracted them, what attracts them now, what's keeping them here, what do they love the most. And let's say they come back and they say, I really love this individual. He's great at training. He's the one who made me really realize the importance of my job. Then make sure you're highlighting that individual, or you have that individual out on the road while you're recruiting. I think a lot of times people want this like huge, beautiful answer of like where to start, but a lot of times some of your great resources are literally the entry level employee that you just hired, who you completely changed your life with this opportunity. And those are like some of my favorite like marketing plays a lot of times are when I just see like quick like videos or clips of interviews with those type of employees. Those are sitting at their desk, just got off the phone with a carrier, and it's like, I love this job because there's always a way for me to problem solve, or that stuff is super authentic. And I think when I look at like our generation, I think that's one thing we're really good at figuring out and seeing through is like who's doing this authentically and who is using stock images and just like barely scraping by. Sure. And like if I asked my father what a stock image was, he'd have no idea. But like we can call it out like a mile away. Right. So the main thing I would say is just like start with some of your best employees and see what got them here. And if it was a referral, then try to consider different ways that you could, whether it's like you do some type of referral promotion where you give people like $100 or something for referring people, or even just hey, we're gonna have a fun company party, bring a friend who might be interested in the job. Like there's different creative ways that you can market those available jobs that can actually organically start with the people that are nowhere even near the suite level, right? Like that are doing the job every single day.
Love that. So Charlie, same thing to you. So are there any tactics that you see out there in the wild that are more successful than others, or something that you should consider if you're just at the infancy of building out a brand and building out a hiring strategy?
Yeah, and just Grace, to your point, I mean, I call that a culture champion, and it is so important for every company to identify and mold and develop their culture champions and involve those people in the process. So that we've got culture champions on our team that are looking at resumes for our hires. They're involved in the interview process. They have weight in the decision because they just really reflect who we are as a company. And they're authentic. They're putting it out there naturally because they believe in what they're saying. But Zach, when you talk about tactics, there's a lot of different things that could be a whole separate discussion.
I'm sure.
Probably the easiest thing, and this is something that I have learned unintentionally, but it really works, is LinkedIn. So I'm very active on LinkedIn, and every post I put out there, I think about my team, and I want my team to read that post and get the message. And I also think about the external audience and my larger network. And a lot of my beliefs and philosophies, a lot of our policies, I put out there on LinkedIn. I want to lead by example. I'm hopeful, when it comes to policies and, our values, our mission, our team is aware of that. But for them to see me promoting it and supporting it and saying it over and over and feeling proud about it. One example is we recently banned emails after 6 p.m. in our company. It works for us. It reduces stress. It's a mental health relief. And we've made that policy internally, but I want our clients to know about it. Like if they don't get an email back till the next morning, that is because we worked really hard during business hours, and it's your choice. So that's something, I'll put that out there on LinkedIn, for my network, but also for our team to know I stand behind what I say and I'm not scared to promote it. It's part of our culture and who we are. So there's a lot that can be accomplished with LinkedIn, and you just have to think on a mass scale. I'm talking to my team, but I'm also, as a result, getting business from this and also attracting candidates who are seeing some of these messages like, wow, I'd like to work for a company like that. So I'd say that was an unanticipated result, is we do get a lot of our candidates and our hires from my LinkedIn posts that originally weren't meant for that. They were meant for business and team members, and now it's a recruiting strategy.
Man, that's awesome. It's really good to hear. So there's a couple questions in chat I want to make sure that we cover here. So you mentioned perks, benefits, draws, things about that. Kind of in my mind, I hear that as there's some intangibles and intangibles, like the hard things that employees might be looking for in a company. Can you kind of dive into some of the pros and cons that might exist, in some of the perks, benefits, and how to approach that in a hiring strategy? And I'd love to hear, I guess, both of your opinions on that. Charlie.
I'll go ahead and share. I have 2 documents I'll share real quick and walk through. So this first document is something that we use to market for candidates that we're looking at. And this is just the benefits and perks of our company. Very simple. We offer standard benefits. We want to promote that. When it comes to some of the additional perks, some of these may have more weight than others, but this one page really represents what we're about and how we value and treat our employees. I'm going to flip to another document, and this is one that we share with clients that are struggling to determine their brand and how their brand is shared externally. So in this document, we're really providing more suggestions. And I think this probably hits on that question about the pros and the cons. Location is something that is a hot topic right now. So we kind of cover, if you're remote, this is how you need to market that. If you have flexible hours, if you, have a strong work-life balance or a hybrid opportunity, all things you want to promote and put out there. When it comes to salary and benefits, you are competing with companies that offer base salaries, commission, incentive, and benefits. So if you don't offer that, you've got to take a closer look at what you are offering and how you're going to offset that. The word draw is it's not a positive word in this industry. People do not want to hear the word draw. They're much more settled to hear, oh, I have to hit a threshold before my commission kicks in, or I have to hit my monthly nut before my commission kicks in. But nobody wants to work on a draw anymore. So here are just some suggestions for, how to market your compensation plan. Do you offer higher base salaries? Do you have the commission? Do you have non-monetary benefits? Second page of this document is role requirements and why is our position better than the same position across the street at our competitor? We offer flexibility. We believe in using different tools like assessment tests after we've brought someone on board. And then lastly here, the hiring process. That is the first perception a candidate has on your company. So how quickly do you move? That is super important right now, just the speed of the process. How can you expedite it? And just the general respect, communication, no ghosting. If you don't like someone, just tell them that you're moving on. They're not the right candidate. But I think there's definitely a lot going on right now, with the ghosting and trying to make sure everyone's getting a response and feels like they're recognized throughout the process.
Oh, for sure. Awesome. Grace, on this topic of like tangibles and intangibles and the pros and cons of them, are there any that stick out to you or come to mind that, people should consider or and benefit point.
Oh, you froze on me really quick. Can you repeat that for me, Zach?
Oh, sorry about that.
You're
Are
good.
there intangibles or tangibles that folks should consider as they're looking at their hiring? So as it relates to perks, comp plans, and benefits.
So number one is having any type of documentation like she just showed you. I think is a huge one, right? Like the amount of energy that your company is putting into that presentation, and also like how they're presenting it throughout the hiring cycle, right? Like if it's let's say it's two interviews in order to fully get the position, right? Like go over that in both interviews. Did you happen to see this, right? Did they show you in the first one? Yes, they did. Perfect. Well, real quick, I want to tell you why this one's my favorite and why this one, impacted me in a specific way. So I think making sure that you're bringing that up and like exposing it and making it part of the discussion is incredibly helpful. And I also think that it's important to realize this, because I know a lot of your viewers are sometimes smaller to medium-sized brokers. You might not have everything that's on that list yet, right? You might be growing into offering a 401k. You might be growing into offering something, and that's okay. Just make sure you're not putting that out there that you have those things when you don't yet. It's funny, you said something about a draw, and then she started talking about the level in order to get your commissions. Like those aren't the same things. And there's a lot of times where you'll see companies say like, we have no draw, but your commission plan has a threshold. It is theoretically the same thing. And that goes into, the authenticity of how you're relaying this messaging to people. Because if any employee feels like what they're told in those first couple interviews, even in like the first week, isn't accurate, it's going to be really hard to like go back and rebuild that relationship. And so I think it's always smart. I saw Kenneth in here, right? Like Kenneth is growing like a really great brokerage. And what's great about him is you'll see him on social media explaining about how he does the job really well and how he meets drivers. But, he might not be offering 3-4 weeks of PTO because he can't yet. He's a growing business. But the way that he's open and honest about what his goals are with his company is enough to drive people to go and work for him and work for what he holds as a person. Shout out Kenneth, right? But yeah, so I think it's just important to realize that what she's saying is there are definitely companies out there that are offering all of those things. But it's completely okay to say we're not there yet. We want to get there, and we really want you to be a part of the team that's going to get us to that point. I think both of those things can happen and be true, and both are going to be able to hire people doing that.
Yeah,
great point.
Kenneth just gave us a heart. That's awesome. Shout out, Kenneth. So to kind of continue in that vein, there's another question. What are some examples of thought leadership that you're seeing in logistics hiring right now? So that's interesting. Like I think everyone's talking about thought leadership as a whole, but is there any thought leadership around hiring? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Grace.
So I hope I'm thinking about this question right. I think the one that I'm very interested in, and I'd love to hear Charlie's perspective, just like working with so many different clients, is like this renaissance against non-competes and leaders at these companies. I think we know a big one in Tennessee that's against it. That's for sure. And I just love that. I think it's like so cool that there's these leaders that are like, and one I'm thinking of is Steam, right? Like he's openly been like, go ahead and send it. We'll showcase who these players are. I really dislike non-competes. There's a lot of states that will not hold them up in court. There's a lot of legal. It's not a great move, especially in this day and age with so many ways to enter in this industry. And I just think it's a really great that leaders are starting to like step back and point that out. And then the second area is mental health. I think it's really important that not only our leadership shows that they might be struggling with mental health issues, but also pointing out that one, we all struggle with different things. We all you need that time off in order to regroup.
Sure.
And I think it's just really great to see that companies are now adding that type of stuff to their benefits packages and explaining, we are really open to providing whatever space you need or time off that you need in order to handle those things, because in the past it's just never even been thought of as something to offer. And I think when you're open and honest about it, like a lot of leaders have been, if you look at like Andrew Silver with Molo, everyone's biggest fear is that like their employee will like take advantage of it. No, when you're authentic about it and you really show that you care, people are going to do the opposite. They're going to do everything that they can to not take advantage of it and show how much it really matters. So those are my two like hot opinions right now that I just absolutely love.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. I mean, great points. I think work from home and just like this virtual world is another really hot topic. And whether companies believe in this virtual setup or not, I think that most leaders aren't considering the message it sends, and the message can go both ways. And what it really comes down to is trust. So, we are a virtual organization. I'm not saying that's for everyone. I'm super proud of how our team has kind of figured it out, and we are happier, more productive, more efficient when we're all at home. But companies have to realize that when you are still requiring someone to come into the office every day, and there's really not a reason. Of course, if they're on the facility floor, if they're a picker, they have to be there. I get that. But
Right.
if it's an office job that can be done from home and a company does not allow that, why? Like, I understand you want camaraderie and you want to build your culture. That can be done 2 or 3 days a week in the office. What about the other days? And why can't we work from home? And it comes down to trust, and employees want to feel trusted. The whole work-life balance thing, you cannot achieve balance if you don't have the flexibility to really create the lifestyle that you're looking for. So when leaders are putting those messages out there, it goes so far beyond, this is our hybrid policy. This is it's why do we have this policy, and what does it actually mean for our people? And then I totally agree with Grace, mental health. We all came out of a really tough year in 2020, and thankfully it brought awareness to this burnout topic and mental health, and what are companies doing? And it doesn't have to be, a lot of companies do great things. We offer therapy for free, and you get 2 therapy sessions a month. It doesn't have to be monetary. It's support, it's recognition, appreciation. Something like how we, banning emails. We haven't missed a beat by responding to emails the next morning. So companies really just need to get creative and think about, what can we do for the benefit of our employees to show them that we care? That's it.
Man, yeah, that is so good. Great perspectives on that. I love to hear that. I'll do one last question, and then we're going to move to the last part of our segment, which is going to be kind of an Ask Me Anything, short form, really quick. We're going to get through some hot words. But last question that I want to throw out here today is kind of related to the technology side. Okay, so like we've had this huge influx of tech into our space, and we hear a lot about pricing technology or capacity, right? There's all of these big things. Visibility is a word that pops up all of the time. So we hear about it on that side, but I'd love to kind of touch on the technology that we should consider when it relates to hiring. So there's some tech table stakes, right, that you should always have. You should have a TMS. You should have a phone system. What are some of the pieces of technology that you should consider from hiring, right? Are there any, or is it more simple than that? So I'd love to hear that, starting with Charlie.
Yeah, there's 2 in my mind that are just absolute deal breakers. One of them is having an ATS, which is an applicant tracking system, the same way most companies have a CRM where they're tracking their customer activity, conversations. You need to have that for people that apply to your company. I can't tell you how many companies we work with where, we will submit a candidate, they'll get to third interview, and then it's like, oh, wait, we talked to this guy 2 years ago. Well, how are you not organized enough to realize that? So, an Excel spreadsheet works. I'm not advising that. Applicant tracking systems, there's a ton of them. It keeps your process streamlined. It creates visibility, transparency, historical information. You may interview someone 2 years ago and they're a great fit now, and the only way you're going to resurface them is if you're organized. The second technology is not just LinkedIn, but one of the LinkedIn paid products. Our firm and probably most recruiting firms subscribe to LinkedIn Recruiter. It is not a cheap investment, but it is extremely powerful. And you have to realize that companies that have internal recruiting teams are using LinkedIn Recruiter, and they can target whoever they want. I mean, you can get super granular with those filters, target someone by city, by title, by company name, by skill sets, by words on their profile. And that same thing can come into play from a marketing standpoint. So you don't need LinkedIn Recruiter to market on LinkedIn, but I don't know if this is common knowledge or not, but if I wanted to go out there and specifically talk to carrier sales reps in Atlanta from a specific company, I can set that up in LinkedIn. So those people get an ad in their face every day, and it can be an ad that speaks exactly to them. And so I think that's something a lot of companies don't realize, when you're talking about marketing for hiring, your budget should probably go towards something on LinkedIn, whether it is recruiter and sending really targeted messages, or just digital marketing and advertising in a very targeted fashion.
Definitely. Awesome. Grace, are there any pieces of tech that you would say everyone needs to consider this if you're diving into the world of hiring and creating a hiring strategy?
Definitely. So I'm going to go more into the aftermath. You got the job and what I'm expecting to see, right? So a lot of, again, back to like more smaller, medium-sized brokers, as you're starting to hire people who have worked at other companies or larger firms than you have. One big area you're going to want to dive into is your track and trace, right? How is that? How are those operations? How are they optimized so that these people aren't literally having to pick up the phone and dial for every single load and figure out where it is at every moment in time? How have you implemented different technologies, whether it's like a Forecast or Project 44, even like Text Locate, right, with Ryan? How have you worked those into your system so that they feel like they're working for a industry that's moving into a technological world? Think about it like this: as we start hiring more of like these Gen Zs and these people that grew up with cell phones, like, you don't want their own life to be more optimized than your own inside operations, right? Like, you don't want that. If you hand them I mean, there's going to be a moment where you hand them a physical landline and they're going to be like, what is this? So why not? Yeah. Like, why not start looking into different ways that you're talking with your customers and with your carriers? And I think that's one thing, like being a part of logistics company, is like every time we brought in new interns, they were just so smart in different technologies that you could, even if it was just like using Excel in a more advantageous way. So be prepared to, you're not just offering technology to improve the customer experience. You're going to need it at some point to start hiring reps into your own operations. And with that being said, like, if anywhere in your mission statement it says that you use technology, but nothing that you have in house has been anything new's been implemented within the last year or two, that doesn't make sense, and that it's not the same thing. So I see a lot of people entering the space who see Uber Freights and see these huge digital marketplaces, Flock Freights, stuff like that, and they want to compete with the hiring, so they say that they're technology enabled. They're really not. So consider that, because at some point, I'm interested in Charlie if she's starting to see this. You're going to see more technology related
Mm,
hirees compared to sales representatives. The flip is gonna happen.
sure.
Where companies like LoadSmart is a great example, right? Like they are really heavy on the tech side, and because of that, they don't they don't have 4 warehouses of sales representatives in order to reach out to all their customers. They built some really great technology in house
Mm,
that empowers their employees. Now they get to use that empowerment through their marketing and through their hiring. So that's almost like less of like a marketing and more of like a beware of what's coming in the future, and realizing generations are changing. And even I'm 32. I always say that. I'm actually 31. I don't know why I skip a year. But, it's that pandemic year. I just forget about it. But I'm 31. It's like I'm old for this industry still. Like, and so think of what the day-to-day life is of an 18-year-old and all the stuff they use, and realize that you're gonna have to keep up with them in order to hire into decades and decades from now. So
yeah,
just something
for
I
sure.
think people don't consider. It's not just about optimizing for yourself, it's about the future of your employees too.
Definitely. Love that. Yeah, I love that we hit both sides of the fence there. Jake in the comments from Exo Freight said, I see so many that say they are tech forward, but they're running an off the shelf TMS. Just be transparent with who you are. It's not always a negative, but it's a negative when you do the bait and switch. And I think we hit on that earlier, where it's just, how can we be authentic to our brand, right? Like if your brand mission says you're, tech forward and that you use technology for the employee and the customer experience, you have to live into that, because that employee, right when they get in the door and they see that that's not the case, you're going to fall flat. So yeah, thank you guys for the perspective on that. So with the last few minutes that we have, we're going to do something called Ask Me Anything. And there's a lot of hot button words, a lot of hot button issues. And with some of these words, like let's say culture. Okay. Sometimes it can lose its intended meaning when it's just thrown around on social media, or there's a lot of perspectives at play. So what I want to do is, kind of in a round robin fashion, we're going to throw some of these words out to you guys, and I want to just hear your 30-second perspective on it. Okay. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yes.
Good to go?
Yes.
All right. First one is for you, Charlie. So 30 seconds on
Okay.
board. Contingent versus retained hiring firms.
Same thing if you were to compare transactional spot quote loads to managed transportation or contracted transportation. So you either have an agreement, it's long term, you pay in advance for a managed service, or you only pay if there's a successful placement that's retained, which is the contingent version. Contingent firms usually share more risk with their clients.
Awesome. Okay, Grace, this one's for you. Culture. What does it mean? What should it mean? Give us your 30-second blurb on culture.
I think culture is the outcome of the investment you put into your employees. And that's not just the internal view, but the outside view. Here's a perfect example. My dad wears my FreightWaves hat every single day, and that's culture. He knows I love my job here. He knows that I stand up for everything that we've been doing and really pushing this industry to see and excel to. And he loves it so much that he stole that from me and promotes it every day to the people around him. And so I think for me, that culture is an outcome. It's not something that you want to aspire. It's just the outcome of the direction that you take and the way that you treat your employees. So it's, people always act like it's something that you are like climbing to, and it's like no, it's the end game.
Love it. Good. Culture. So all right, next one. Work-life balance. Charlie, give us your 30 to 60 seconds on work-life balance. What does it mean? What should it mean? Where are we at with it?
Yeah. It goes back to something I said before. Work-life balance can only be achieved if you have flexibility, and you're only going to have flexibility if you're trusted. So if you need to be in an office from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m., How the heck are you supposed to have a balance? Where is the life part of that? I work from home and I work way more hours than I ever did in the office, but I feel way more connected to my kids, to what's going on with my
Yeah.
family, with my friends, because I have that flexibility. So it's a hot topic right now, and I really hope the future of work adjusts that it's a priority for all employers.
Love that. Awesome. So Grace, work from home. This is one that comes up all the time. We touched on it a little bit earlier today. So work from home, 30 to 60 seconds. How should we view it? What should we think about? What's your opinion?
Charlie hit on this earlier, and I wanted to scream it from the rooftop. Work from home just means I trust my employees. I trust the systems I've given them. I've trusted the people that train them. I trust their managers to do their job, and I trust you that you're gonna be at the house, and when a customer wants to call and has a load that needs to be covered, that you're going to cover it. And so I completely agree with what she said earlier. When you see companies that are very afraid of setting up that type of atmosphere, it's usually because they don't trust their employees. And I definitely don't think it's because they don't trust the entry level. It's because they don't trust the systems they put in place. They don't trust the people in certain positions to make sure that everything underneath it moves smoothly. So if you're a group of mid-level, C-level employees, executives at a firm, and you're saying, I don't know about work from home, stop that conversation and just figure out, okay, what do we need to work on in this company to get to that point? Because it's not just figuring out whether you're going to work from home on Wednesday or Friday.
Sure.
None of those should matter. It's more of what processes maybe we need to invest in, different type of technology in order to get better clarity of work. But it's definitely not the employees that are making the work from home impossible. It's the systematics behind it.
Fantastic. All right, Charlie. Diversity and inclusion. This is one that has come up a lot, especially in the past couple years. So give us your thoughts. Diversity, inclusion, 60-ish seconds on this.
Yeah, it's all about having an unbiased approach to recruiting. And a great scenario in a company is what we've been talking about. You have employees that love what they do. They shout it from the rooftops. They bring in referrals. That's great, but you need to limit that to, are they bringing in people with the same demographic, from the same company, from the same part of the country? So when companies are focused on diversity and inclusion, you have to really be mindful of who is that person sorting through resumes. Are they somebody who sees a name and puts it in one pile because of the perception of that culture or ethnicity? I think it starts there, and I think that the more you try and automate recruiting, I'm all for technology and I believe in artificial intelligence. However, that is probably the fastest way to create a bias with hiring. You set a standard, you tell the computer, we want to see X, Y, and Z. That's eliminating the rest of the alphabet, and that's where your diverse population lives.
Man, love that. All right, last one here, Grace. Tech enabled. We touched on a little bit, but let's wrap this up. 30 to 60 seconds on what tech-enabled should mean.
So tech-enabled can quite literally mean everything down to I use Excel spreadsheets. And that's where it's up to you as a company to figure out, what does tech-enabled mean to you and how are you promoting that throughout the hiring cycle, right? I think it's really great for companies to, at some point in hiring, explain what that means, what those systems are, have reps sit with the people that use those systems, have them see exactly how they're used and how they optimize their time. And it goes back to the culture, what you call them, culture gurus, right? Or something like that.
Culture champions.
Champions, yeah. If your culture champions aren't using your technology appropriately, that's maybe we should take tech enabled off of our definition of our company until that is figured out. So I think it's it's one of those things where it's okay to not be completely tech enabled yet, but it's okay to be open about what that enablement is. Like maybe we're tech enabled because we use a free TMS, but we're hoping to, over the next couple of years, as we grow as a company and from the results that you produce, that we can start investing in these areas as well, and bring, better cost savings to our customers, and then following through with that, right? So I think that one is funny to me because I actually fear more for the people looking to get hired than like the companies that are hiring. Like if I could write if I could just write any article, it would just be like all caps, like tech enabled, ask what that means. Like and one, like it's probably going to do well in the interview for you because they're going to be interested in your interest in what that means. And two, you're going to find out quickly, okay, this is exactly what I should expect on day one. This isn't what I should expect on day one, and go from there. So, if anything, don't be afraid to not have that much technology. And the people you're going to hire are going to help you help introduce you to what might need to be added as time goes by. So, yeah, that's I probably use that phrase too much too. I need to go through my writing. I probably
put it out there.
Right? Yeah. That is synergy, but
yeah, synergy. Love it. Well, thank you guys so much for being a part of the series today. I loved everything that we were able to cover in such a short amount of time. Just a quick touch on it. So our poll that we put out there, again, what did people find as the biggest hurdle in hiring strategy? The highest was attracting qualified talent. So we might have to do a follow-up series in the future that maybe touches just on that. But for everyone who's with us in chat and, watching now, we'll definitely, open it up to, continue sending your questions in. We want to be a resource. And really the whole point of the series is, again, to peel back the layers on how the logistics of marketing actually works in all of these different spaces. So thank you again for being a part. Thanks for everyone who joined the Logistics of Marketing today. You can catch Charlie at cs-recruiting.com. And Grace is a staff writer at FreightWaves. You can see a bunch of her articles, and she's very active on LinkedIn. And then lastly, we'll be releasing the dates for our next webinar series, which is actually going to touch on the topic of pricing. And pricing, digital, dynamic, all of these different words. So we're going to release the dates for that in the coming week. Definitely reach out to Charlie or Grace if you have any follow-up questions. And we will make the materials that Charlie shared in today's webinar available as well. So anything else from you guys?
No, but it's a great series, and I'm excited to see the other episodes as well. You guys are great.
I agree. Great topics that need to be discussed.
Fantastic. Well, thank you guys again, and we will see you on the next one. Bye.